Before we launch into today's lesson, I just want to reflect briefly on this course and what I think we can do better in the future. I think this course has been a great foundation and I've certainly learned a lot. It feels a bit less practical than I would have liked it to feel. So I still think it's worth doing this course and getting through it because there's a lot of foundational knowledge contained in there that's gonna be helpful for future projects. That said, what I want to do in the future, and I think we will keep working on using AI for investment management and even for running investment firms, growing AUM and so forth. So what I want to do in the future, I want to have more mini courses, almost modules, with each one focused on a very specific outcome, something you can actually put into production and use in your investment process or on the business side if you run your own investment firm. So on the investment process side, I think idea generation is a place where we can build a lot of very useful tools. Some of them could be customized by country or the types of companies, maybe industry-specific analysis. And then on the investment firm side, this is where we have a lot of experience from having interacted with emerging managers for almost a couple of decades now, having run the Zurich Project event annually that's focused on building sustainable investment firms. And I think we can use AI to actually build modules that can be very helpful to emerging managers in building relationships. I have some ideas around that that I haven't seen implemented in any products out there. And I want to do more of that in the future. So we're definitely going to do much more with AI here on the Latticework Substack. And it's going to be much more practical and something you can implement. And I think what we're going to do is I will both try to show you how to build something and then also hopefully be able to give you the built thing that you can actually use without having to go through the whole process yourself. So stay tuned for that. Now back to this course. Today we are in lesson 14. This really builds on lesson 13. So if you haven't done lesson 13, definitely go back and do that one before trying to get through today's lesson. We are building in Claude Code and we're really building today on the scaffolding that we put in place in lesson 13. So we learned about Git, GitHub. We built a private repository on GitHub. We learned about how to put your API key into a file that keeps it secret. And today we're gonna basically layer 3 things on top of the scaffolding we built in lesson 13. One is an EDGAR freshness check, which basically makes sure that the companies that are passing through that initial FMP-based screener are actually reporting the latest data and that we're using fresh EDGAR data for those companies, thereby eliminating any companies that are maybe very late in their filings or simply verifying that for whatever reason we're not relying on stale data. And then we're also building a Fred layer on top of this. I'd say this is more of an optional thing. If you really don't need any macro inputs into specific investment decisions, then this is not necessary. But let's say if we're considering home building or housing companies, then putting in a few macro series that relate directly to home builders, such as housing starts, could be helpful. And that's what we're gonna look at and do in today's lesson. And then finally, what we're going to do, and this is probably the most important part here, is build a scoring layer that's going to allow us to get through companies a bit faster. So the F&P screener was basically a hard filter. Either companies made it through it or they didn't. What we're doing with a scoring layer is essentially reflecting our investment process and idea evaluation preferences explicitly through scores, and then using a probability weighted score for each idea that passed the initial screen to essentially tell us, here are the companies we should be probably focusing on. So this is not a quantitative selection mechanism, it's simply a mechanism that helps us prioritize our research time so we can focus on the ideas that most align with our investment approach. And what we're going to do is put basically our scoring criteria, our weights, if you will, into a separate config file. It's just a simple text file that is separate from the script that is running all of this, so that we can easily adjust those weights without touching the script itself. And that's pretty useful because it allows us to tweak the weights over time. If, let's say, we get scoring results that surprise us, that don't quite give us what we want, we can play around with those weights in the config file without touching the script itself. So I hope you'll find today's lesson useful. After this one, we have just 2 more left, and then we will have a really good foundation to build on and launch into much more practical projects here on this Substack real soon.